Welcome back to Glimpses of a Possible Future, brought to you by Makespace Oxfordshire. We're celebrating a handful of local projects that inspire us, great examples working towards spatial justice. Welcome back to Glimpses of a Possible Future, and today I'm delighted to be joined by collaborators and friends, Zahra Haji Tehrani and Lauren Corona from YWMP. So welcome, guys. Thanks for dropping in.
Thanks for having me and us.
So YWMP are founding residents of Makespace and a group we've been working alongside and learning from at each and every step. We'll talk about the pivotal role the project has been playing in the city and across the country, shaping inclusive spaces for young people wanting to express themselves through music, and how the project has been developing through the opening of their first fully independent space in central Oxford, The Nest. YWMP describe themselves as much more than an independent music project, encouraging creativity in every form. And it's more essential than ever that projects like YWMP exist in this city, as positive glimpses of a future we want to be part of. Oxford has seen closures of the much-loved independent music venues The Cellar, Wheatsheaf, and the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Centre in recent years. And alongside this, Oxford and elsewhere is seeing a widening class inequality around creative and cultural sectors as budgets are cut across youth provision and the arts. And so against this backdrop and with a commitment to inclusive space, YWMP have been doing this vital work for more than 20 years. And Zahra has been leading it for at least 15 of those. So let's hear from Lauren and Zahra and dive into the conversation. Zahra, can you tell us a bit more about the project, how it came into being, and what your relationship has been to it?
YWMP started in 2000 at the ArcT Centre, and it was founded by Kate Garrett. The project's first version of it included more bands, so it was actually called the Young Women's Band Project, and we met monthly. And it was a space for people to come and jam, really, and learn more about the industry and inequality in music. I came along into the project at 14. I started accessing the support of the ArcT Music Project and then met Kate and trained with her on the project from 16 to 21. And in that time, she sadly passed away, and I took the project on and changed it quite dramatically. Took the word band out, put music in there just so it was a bit more inclusive in terms of genre, and then decided to host a lot more than once a month. So the participants grew, and we shifted and moved around many spaces around town so we could get what we needed in terms of recording spaces to be really loud with lots of drums, places that were more equipped for rehearsal, so rehearsal studios, but also we've been in other spaces like classrooms, dark rooms, things that maybe we shouldn't be in. And the project's gone from strength to strength. We eventually became a charity and then had a bit more autonomy and how we received grants and the infrastructure of our project. And now we're working on a level of developing policy and hosting lots of different events and shows in our own space. So big change in
Amazing.
20 so years.
It's been a journey. It's been beautiful watching at least the last 7 years of it. But there's so much more. And Lauren, when did you join the project and what's your relationship been to it?
So, being a musician at Oxford, I knew Zahra from around and about. Your friend's my sister, I think. And I knew of YWMP, but I was, older than the upper age range of the project. So I first became involved in, I think it was 2019 or maybe 2018. And that was through Team Drum, which is an all-ages drum troupe. And we basically perform at things like pride, protests, carnivals and stuff like that, festivals sometimes. And so I started getting involved through Team Drum. And then I became maybe more involved when Zahra put a call out for people to work on the Safer Spaces project. So this was to develop a Safer Spaces policy, which I'm sure we'll talk about more. And then, again, we'll talk more about the new space, but since that's been open, I've been volunteering to help run the policy at shows.
YWMP works with women and trans and non-binary people, primarily ages 14 to 25. What barriers do people of marginalised genders have in accessing the kind of space for music and creativity in Oxford? Could you just paint a picture for us and describe how you've been trying to address that?
So I talk largely from lived experience of being someone who grew up in Oxford and was heavily involved in the Oxford music scene from about 14, and coming from a background like working class immigrant background, it has been very, very difficult. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We, as young people in bands, especially making music that was sort of against the grain, like we were making like punk, electronic punk kind of stuff, and it was fronted by girls, and we were teenagers. We experienced a lot of misogyny, and everything through from being like screamed at in soundcheck to being like groomed by men in the industry. I don't even really want to call it an industry. I would just say a scene, because it's a very small scene with a lot of people in it. So we're a small city with a lot of people that make music in it. So it's just a strange proportion compared to some cities. And then you've got this overshadowing thing of like loads of rich boys made it. And they're all making very specific like guitar music, and it's, you know, put Oxford on the map in a way that means trying to do anything against that can be a massive challenge, and it's not necessarily embraced. And then if you have other things that make you marginalised in the world, that just makes it even harder to be seen and heard. And age was a massive barrier because we couldn't play anywhere, and we would have to play and be out by a certain time, or we were just playing to older people. So people of our age group weren't getting to experience what we were doing as often as we would have liked. I would say that now that the Misogyny in Music report has been released 2 years in a row, which is a national... it's been released in the UK by Parliament, it highlights more and more that things haven't changed, and that even in a year when this had been released and people had got to grips with what is actually going on, things haven't moved forward as rapidly as we would like. And people are doing the work, but it is a huge culture shift. It's not just about writing down a list of what you won't tolerate and putting it on the wall and hoping that people adhere to it. It's about making change from, you know, how people talk about music, how they engage with it, even just how you listen to it and what you listen to and how you access music, and how you think deeply about what are artists getting out of this? What apps am I using to access music? What harm do they do in the world? There's so many layers to it, and it's not going to happen overnight. But the way we behave in spaces and the way we take up space is the first thing that we can do. And that ties into what we're trying to do with the Nest and the Safer Spaces policy, and gauging understanding from across the UK. So we're not just talking about Oxford, we're getting lots of other people's experiences too, to try and reflect that in the policy, and hope that, because at grassroots is where the most damage is being done very early on, and then it stops people very, very early in their tracks. And that is something that I see very often, is that you have one bad experience and then you don't go back, and that's the bit that we're targeting. It's not larger than that. We're not going for, like, you know, the whole of nightlife as a whole. It's just grassroots DIY kind of music.
I think that, like you say, it starts very early, that if someone doesn't feel welcome in the space, if someone feels like a space isn't for them, or a whole scene isn't for them because they get treated a certain way when they're there, they're not taken as seriously, then they're not going to come back, whether that's to go and watch live music or whether that's to be a part of bands. And often, like, one might progress from the other. People might go to a lot of shows and then end up thinking, I could do this. But if they're not even feeling like they can go to a show without experiencing some kind of negative behavior from other people there, then they're not going to get to a point where they feel like they can be part of the scene or start to make music.
And that feels like it's such a huge breakthrough then in having your, wholly owned independent space for the first time, albeit on a short-term lease, but it's YWMP's, and you can curate it, shape it, and welcome people in a way that's very particular to how you operate. So could you say a bit more about The Nest and how it's been developing over the last year since you launched?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of it was funding dependent and dependent on whether the space was available for us to take on. Things take a lot longer than I ever imagined, which I'm sure you understand very well. One of the things that hit me really hard when we opened on the launch in September, and I was actually very angry on the launch. I wasn't happy in the way that I thought I would be. And it was just because of the amount of doubt that I've experienced from people in Oxford. And it really frustrated me because I'm looking around and I'm like, I knew what I was doing all along. Mm-hmm. Just no one actually wanted to give me the time of day. And actually, we know exactly what we're doing and we know exactly what we need. So it's been it's a frustrating position to be in because, I've been doing this 22 years from 16. That's a long time. And I've watched the city move and develop and just been waiting for a seat at the table to the point where I was like, I don't want a seat anymore. I'm just going to create my own thing because I'm done with trying to adhere to the way you want me to be in that space. And I think gathering the information from Manchester, people in Manchester, Leeds, Liverpool, London, understanding what everyone else is going through, there's not actually that much of a difference. There's just tiny tweaks here and there. Because we're in a university town, we are experiencing it on a very magnified level because of the divide is so huge, right? But taking on the space has been a huge learning curve for us, being part of Makespace and being in on Aristotle Lane, and all the things are covered, and you're not really thinking about, oh my gosh, the taps are broken. How the hell are we gonna help people wash their hands today? You're not thinking about the operations of a thing, and that's what's held us back. Is opening the doors, you've got to wait for the acoustic curtains to be installed because otherwise it sounds like a swimming pool. It's all these things that we never had thought about before. But other than that, the way I see it, this is what I'll say, is that the policy has run so smoothly, and things come up, but we have dealt with things so well, and actually it is exactly what I hoped it to be so far. Touch all the wood, but it is.
Yeah, and being a part of running that policy, basically, part of what that entails is, we've talked a little bit about, the art of gathering. It's making people feel welcome in the space as soon as they get there. When I'm on the door, I'll be greeting people. I'll be telling them that there is a safe spaces policy. If anything's wrong, they can come find me. Orientating them within the space in case they haven't been there before, and just making sure that people feel as comfortable as possible, and they know that they don't have to have experienced something huge for it to be a problem. That if anything makes you feel uncomfortable, you can talk about it. And sometimes it doesn't need a big intervention with the person who, maybe created the problem, because it might have been accidental. Sometimes you just need to hear someone, and having a space where that's really easy. Because how many times have people experienced something at a venue, at a club, and just been I don't know who to go to. And one of the great things that YWMP is doing with the policy is just making it so easy for people to feel better in a space.
And I've really got the sense from watching it evolve and you taking it on tours across the country and shaping it, and as you say, drawing inspiration from different cities and different venues. is it's a living, breathing thing. So it's, policy can often sound like, something that goes in a drawer and you just, you write it and you don't look at it. But you've been kind of co-creating and co-building that with other venues, but also with the young people. So could you just say a bit more about that process and how that's kind of given it the strength and the value to the people that then enjoy your spaces?
Yeah, so we've been meeting weekly were meeting weekly till it was very active for 2 years. And different people have popped in and out and very instrumental in how it was developed. At the beginning, it was a very simple public-facing policy which just said how we hope people would behave in the space and interact in the space, and a list of things we wouldn't tolerate in terms of behaviour. And then now it's developed so there's a procedure beside every single possible thing. So, for example, IDing people on the door is a really, really big thing. That's where a lot of stuff can go wrong very quickly. And in that, we've broken down everything to do with like race, gender, sexuality, people with disabilities, and all of those parts were written by people with lived experience of those things. So it is the experience they've had being othered on the door. And then that's a huge, huge part of like the training is how, and we've even written scripts for people to go to if they feel uncomfortable with figuring out what to say on the door. And also, like, we worked with Good Night Out campaign and they helped us work on a bit of de-escalation and how to, like, manage a difficult situation, because what we're trying to do is not punish people. So if something goes wrong, it's not like you're cancelled, you can't come back into the space. It's very much about having a conversation, and that doesn't stop there. Like, that will continue after if people want to do that. If they want mediation to come back in, then the community can decide how they're reintegrated based on the level of harm that took place. So those are the things that we're practicing, and like lots of people have been trained, and as you said, it's a living, breathing document, so it's changing every time we do the training. And then we try to support the volunteers by giving them space to offload and relax as well, because it is quite a heightened position to be in when you're like overseeing up to 200 people having a good time and receiving uncomfortable things as well when people are struggling.
Yeah, and I know that you've said all along that, it's never finished, the policy, because you might encounter something new that you hadn't thought about. And I think one of the really important things, which you and YWMP are great at, but that can be a real problem with some people or some organizations, is like being able to admit when something's wrong or when it didn't work, and being really willing to try something else or to integrate something you hadn't thought of. Whereas I think a lot of problems can arise when somebody is just sure of their position, sure that they've got it right, and aren't willing to move if something comes up.
Yeah, and one thing to add as well is policies are not just about the audience. We're actually trying to hold promoters accountable and musicians. So we have made it so streamlined and easy for the promoter to like up their game, because really, truthfully, in Oxford, the bar is low. Doing things like giving the artist a contract, giving them an access rider. You may have never heard of that before, but like you may have heard of a rider like I want blue M&Ms or whatever the jokes are about being a rock star. But the access rider is a form that the artist can fill out and be like, actually, I get really overwhelmed and I need like a low lit space that I can be quiet in like 30 minutes before I play, or, you know, I have needs in terms of how I access the space physically. Like there's so many things you could let people know in advance, but we as musicians never get told that that's a possibility. So this is stuff that we're trying to share with the promoters so that they practice the best that they can using the musicians' union rates of pay and all these kinds of things that just... And you know, even PRS, which is a place that collects royalties for musicians, we're following that. And I know a lot of venues don't do that. So every time you play The Nest, if you're signed up to PRS, you get paid outside of your payment. Just in ways that, like, go over the head of many, many venue owners and promoters. So we're trying to do the best we can with what we've got. And, like, we've really thought of absolutely everything. Like, I'm quite impressed with the way the group has really just gone for it, and hopefully it will just keep growing.
Yeah, it's really magical because you get that sense, you could see it as, oh, this is quite intimidating. There's a lot here. Actually, is it about putting up barriers, where it's completely the opposite? It's about breaking them down, and it's about welcoming people in and thinking about every single detail in that process, like you said, Lauren, the art of gathering, and that sense of, how do we welcome people in a way that thinks about every single element of the interaction, not just the music that's being played or, what's being offered in terms of refreshments. It goes way beyond that. And could you describe a little bit about, how the space comes to life? How does it look? How does it feel? Like, what have been the most joyful moments for you so far of the space and how it's been working?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I guess, seeing it, because I saw it when it was empty, when it was, throughout the whole process of being fitted out as a venue. And when I first saw it full and first saw that, not everybody, some people would take more time to come to it, but a good bunch of people really got what you were trying to do and really appreciated, the care that went to the policy, and seeing people just dance while some of the young people are DJing. Or one of my highlights actually was seeing Willow, one of the young people, part of the project, doing a set of music that, a music project that she'd been creating, and part of it was based around her experiences coming from Papua. And that was amazing. She was so good.
Yeah. We've one of the things, and it's really small, but it makes me realise so much. We had this massive battle about whether we were going to work on the floor, because it's a really nice parquet. Is that how you call it? Parquet flooring. So it's fancy, but it was messed up because it was a furniture shop, and I was just like, why are we working on the floor? I was like, this is ridiculous. We're here for a year, what are we doing? And the person who's project managing was like, you need to work on the floor. People need to put their footprints for the first time in this space. And I'm like, okay. And then it really hit me hard when we opened, because you think of a live music space, it stinks of alcohol,
sticky floor,
all this kind of stuff. People see we care, and then they care. When you're watching people put their glasses away to be washed and their drinks rubbish in the bin, and you're like, what? And to me, that is the thing, is we are showing people how much care has gone into this, and how much love and energy, and then we are most of the time getting that back, and that's what I love. And also just the fact that young people are I'm starting a band, can I please just come and rehearse? And they don't get put in a dingy room that's not actually fit for purpose, which is what we've had on offer to us forever. We're oh no, we'll just run you through the PA. You can literally rehearse like you will at a show, with monitors all around you and really nice equipment, and then they get the experience they deserve, and you can hear it how you hear it in your head, but out loud in real time. So those are the things that mean a lot to me, just that luxury of being loud as well, and not feeling like you're just annoying everybody, which as a musician kind of carry that around.
Yeah, I think that sense of valuing people, valuing the creative process. I did really enjoy peeking through the windows as you were fitting out the space, and how much time and love was spent on sanding that floor and revarnishing it. And it makes a total difference. You walk in and you're like, this is somewhere really special. And it, was previously just a vacant shop that had been, left alone, and you've brought it back to life. Is there anything else you'd like to draw out, I suppose, from either the Safer Spaces policy that we haven't mentioned, or from the space as it is now, and what you kind of hope for it as it evolves and sort of beds into the community?
I'm just hoping to see more young bands come up and young musicians doing their thing, because there's a real lack of it, and we're seeing the same thing over and over and over. And I'm hoping that this is a space to foster that kind of longing to perform live again, and that young people are just excited. And it is happening, but I want to see more of it. The energy come about where people are ready to showcase and share and feel supported by us. And also just watching younger people have autonomy, like the fact that I can walk away and they're running the space without me is like such a beautiful feeling. And I just want more of that to be, you know, for them to feel powerful in their knowledge and just keep sharing it as widely as possible, really.
That's lush, yeah. And that just doesn't happen overnight and by accident, does it? You've put so much care into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that younger people really aren't. People don't trust them. People think, you know, they're all standing outside co-op smoking cigarettes or whatever. And yeah, for them to be able to feel like they've got, you know, can take on this responsibility, have a say in the space to a degree, and yeah, just to feel empowered in that way, it's really special. And like to, you know, I've seen some young people go through the project for, you know, since I started being a part of it. So like, I guess like coming up for 8 years or so. And, you know, particular people who, when I first met them, they were like so quiet, like, yeah, like you couldn't even really hear them across the room, and to see them like doing things today, which are like really exciting, getting on with their lives, being an adult, like trying to do things. And like, I just think that YWMP has probably been really instrumental in those changes in their life, and it's really amazing to see.
No doubt. Yeah. It's the confidence building element, isn't it? So much more than a music project. And we've really seen that in watching the groups and the young people come through. So drawing it together and kind of turning to the common thread that underpins this podcast series, what ingredient would you offer up from all the learning, all the work that's gone into YWMP over the many, many years for co-creating a future that we all want to be part of, that builds towards spatial justice and that fosters a sense of belonging and centres health, equity and joy?
Wow. I would want to offer a policy or a version of this policy that could be co-created for every public space and every organisation, so that they felt that all the voices within it are heard, and that the people who come into that have an option to put their mark on it as well. I think it's a really important thing for us to think about, and it's something that we've worked really hard on, and I would love to see it grow and be a part of the Oxford landscape.
Yeah, I think more venues like The Nest, not even necessarily run by YWMP, but just, you know, that maybe it's planted a seed of like how things can be different. And I'm not saying that there's, you know, there aren't other like grassroots organizations doing great things in other cities. There really are. But I've never been somewhere that every element has been thought through as carefully, that you've got a policy in place in the way that it is in The Nest, and also more team drum, I think. Team drums across the land.
I love team drum.
Because they're not just actually about coming together and playing drums. It's, you know, a space for people to gather in general, a space for people to learn something new. You know, you have everyone from 14-year-olds to people in their 60s or 70s sometimes, and people who think that they're never going to get the beats, and then they get the beats, and, you know, they're so pleased with themselves. And that's just good to, yeah, it's great.
Nice. Thanks, guys. So come on, how can people get involved? Where can we find you? What's coming up? What support do you need?
You can find us on social media if you look up YWMP Oxford, and our website is ywmp.org.uk. You can join the mailing list. You can find out about how to host stuff in the space, all the projects that we run. So much is coming up. I think you might need to just go and look, because I can't really tell you.
It's a packed schedule. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the newsletters. There's always so much going on.
YWMP is a charity, so you can donate your money if you have some spare. It goes a long way, and it really makes a difference. And also, if you're so inclined, people are volunteering to run the policy in the space. People are also volunteering to run the bar if you're not interested in getting too deep into the policy. And that just helps things run.
And that we treat volunteers very well. It's not just a CV tick box. We make sure that you get some good perks.
There's always the best food. I've seen it.
Best food. We trade time for space, so you can give us time and then we can give you space to get excited about a new thing you want to run. And also we just host nice events for the volunteers so they feel loved too.
And it's a beautiful space with a sparkling floor.
It's a great group of people. You might make some friends.
Thanks, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming in. And I know you guys have got a lot on, so appreciate you sharing the story and all the influence and shaping that you've done for MakeSpace as well. You know, we've learned from and adapted our Safer Spaces policy, you know, to learn from the incredible work that you've been doing. And, you know, just that core principle of everyone's space being valid, be mindful of how much you take up and be generous sharing it is just something I carry with me when I'm thinking about when we're taking on a new space or how we're welcoming people into MakeSpaces buildings. So, it's a huge amount of gratitude from us and the team.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Glimpses of a Possible Future. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, or why not share it with a friend?